Good afternoon, everyone. And we want to thank you for tuning into this webinar. This is part of a series that we do in collaboration with SBA to make sure that you are getting the resources that you need for your business during this time as we get out of the pandemic and beyond. So about the Office of Business Opportunity, we are here as a small business advocate for you. We have certification as well as business development programming that is here to help you, whether you are at the beginning stages of your business entrepreneurship career or you are moving up and beyond. So we can be here to connect you with the resources that you need, provide you with the educational opportunities that you need, as well as assist you with any questions that you have, whether it's permitting questions or just saying, hey, we need somebody to bounce some ideas off of. What can we set up an appointment? We're definitely here for you. And again, we thank you for tuning in today. And we really are thankful for this partnership, collaboration that we have with the SBA. I'll put my information in the chat. So if you have any questions on the City of Houston, also if you have any questions about how to do business with the City of Houston, I am definitely here to assist you with that. So thank you so much, Abby.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson, for that great information. And as Dr. Porscha Jackson mentioned, she'll be putting her contact information in the chat for you. So feel free to connect with her, especially if you have questions about working with the City of Houston or other questions about their resources. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our Deputy District Director, Mr. Mark Winchester, who's going to be presenting to you today about innovation research through the SBA's SBIR and STTR programs. Mark?
Abigail, thank you very much. And Dr. Jackson, thank you so much for the work that you are doing. And the City of Houston really do appreciate the collaboration between these two organizations. I'm here to talk to you today about funding innovative research. And this funding of innovative research includes small business innovation research, as well as small business technology transfer. The SBIR/STTR objectives include to help startups and small businesses transform from their high-risk, high-impact technologies into marketable products and services that solve real problems. The SBIR/STTR program goals include meeting federal research and development needs, increase private sector commercialization of innovation derived from federal research and development funding, stimulate technological innovation, foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurship by women and socially economically disadvantaged individuals, as well as foster technology transfer through cooperative R&D between small business and research institutions. And I just want to highlight, really want to emphasize the takeaways from SBIR and STTR is research and development, commercialization, innovation. And what is also key, and I want you to focus on this as well, as participation, but to reiterate, this is innovation and entrepreneurship by women and socially economically disadvantaged. You know, you have MIT in Boston and you have Silicon Valley, but there's innovation that is taking place in entrepreneurship in other cities as well. And SBA wants to be part of that, where not only participation is not East Coast and West Coast, but throughout the 50 United States. Next slide, please. Why should you care about the SBIR/STTR? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, we call it STEM, affect every aspect of our lives, from epidemiology to engineering, to meteorologists, to earth scientists. All of these are STEM-related occupations. And it's through these STEM-related occupations that innovation and entrepreneurship take place. There are very limited sources of funding available for these STEM startup startups, including business angels, venture capital, personal resources. So SBA wants to fill in that gap of capital access to these innovative, high impact, high growth firms. The SBIR STTR program provides a non-dilutive source of capital for startups. This means the company doesn't give up any equity in exchange for SBIR STTR funding. What does an SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research firm, look like? Well, here's a perfect example. The ubiquitous company, Experiencing Truly Transparent Solar. This company received 2 Phase 1 awards from the National Science Foundation in 2013 and 1 Phase 2 SBIR Innovation Research grant. The technology looks like a regular window, but it can harness solar energy from glass surfaces and generate electricity. Please see their website for more details. There's not a success story on them, but if you visit the website, you can get more information on how the team worked with MIT and Michigan State University. Their website is just ubiquitous.energy/about. Another firm that obtained SBIR grant is the Naviator. This company received a Phase 1 and Phase 2 from the Navy in 2017. The Naviator is an unmanned vehicle that can fly and swim. Another example is this Made in Space. Made in Space was the first to perform additive manufacturing in space. Please take a look at their website at madeinspace.us. Since 2011, they have had 24 SBI awards, mostly from NASA. Which agencies fund SBIR? They include agriculture, commerce, education, the Environmental Protection Agency, also known as EPA, Homeland Security, transportation. This is key because we're talking about SBIR and STTR, and these federal agencies only participate in SBIR. Which agencies fund both SBIR and STTR? They include Defense, Energy, Health and Human Services, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, National Science Foundation. And we have seen here in Houston many SBIRs originating from both Health and Human Services and also the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. And so we're very fortunate here to have NASA, but we're also, I guess, doubly fortunate that NASA participates both in SBIR and STTR. Some additional information about SBIR, STTR. And the question you may have is it a loan program? You know, a lot of people, when they hear of SBA, they only think of loans. And we're much more than loans. And that's what SBIR, STTR is about. The answer is no, this is not a loan program. It is a financial award with no strings attached. You do not give up any equity, and that is what we call non-dilutive capital. You do not have to give up rights to your intellectual property. And if your innovation is very successful, you may be eligible for what is called a Phase 3 contract without further competition because of special rights referred to as SBIR data rights. You can learn more about SBIR data rights in a brief course, and I'm going to talk about this later as well, by visiting sbir.gov/tutorials. Who shouldn't consider the SBIR, STTR programs? Well, if you're a business that needs money for marketing, or you need money for manufacturing, or you need money for cash flow, or doesn't conduct innovative research. So if you fall in one of these categories, then SBIR, STTR may not be right for you. We are looking for high-tech, high-impact, high-growth companies, not businesses that are just looking for money for marketing, manufacturing, need cash flow, or do not conduct innovative research. How much funding does SBIR, STTR program provide? Well, you can see here the 2020 budget. You can see who the major contributors for that budget for FY 2020 alone. Up at the top, you can see, well, I don't know if you can see, it is very detailed, but I can see here, it includes Department of Defense at 1.97 billion, so essentially $2 billion. This is followed by Health and Human Services and the National Institute of Health at 1.2 billion, Department of Energy at 320 million, National Science Foundation and NASA at 219 million. And the major contributors or major contributors of the SBIR program include Department of Agriculture, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Commerce. And so you can see here on an annual basis, we are talking over $3 billion. Let me repeat that. That is $3 billion annually for small business innovation research and small business technology transfer. And then also keep in mind, as we pointed out in a previous slide, there are some agencies that do both or offer both SBIR and STTR grant funding. And that's too, I also need to reiterate, these are not loans, these are grants. Here's a diagram, a chart, if you will, of the various phases for funding for SBIR. And you know, I need to point out the pre-phase, the pre-proposal phase. This is very critical. And want to emphasize to you that in the pre-phase, you want to develop your idea. You want to develop the ideal regarding your prototype. And I want you to think about or be aware that there are SBA resources that can assist you in this pre-proposal phase when you submit your project to a participating agency. We also have phase 1, which is 6 to 12 months, and where you're developing the concept. Phase 1 is up to $150,000 grant. Phase 2, which can be up to 2 years. Developing the prototype can be up to $1 million. And this includes the prototype, the phase 2 demos, and then lastly, phase 3 is product to market. And please be aware that phase 3 is non-SBIR STTR funding. In phase 3, that's where you're going to be. If your company reaches a phase 3, either in an SBIR, STTR, that means it's going to commercialization. That means there's a corporation, agency that wants to do business with you, commercializing your product. Tell me about STTR funding. And so keep in mind, this is small business technology transfer. And what does that mean? The STTR program is a smaller program. There are 5 agencies that have a small business technology transfer program. These agencies have over $1 billion of extramural R&D. And extramural is just a fancy term for outside. So what they're saying here is these agencies have over $1 billion of R&D that would take place outside of the agency. They provide nearly 0.5% of their extramural R&D budget for STTR awards. These 5 agencies include Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, Department of Energy, National Science Foundation, and guess who else? NASA. Now, to comment further on the difference between SBIR and STTR, SBIR, you need a small business, and they are the applicant with a principal investigator. We call it a PI. And the small business is responsible for 67% of the grant. And what is optional is that 33% can be subcontracted out. Now, for an STTR, there's a research institution. And what do we have here in Houston? We have tier 1 research institutions, including the University of Houston. So you could go down the path of SBIR, but you could also go down the path of STTR because we do have tier 1 research institutions right here in Houston. And with an STTR, the research institution would be responsible for a minimum of 30% of the grant. And then the small business would be responsible for a minimum of 40%, and the 30%, that would be discretionary or negotiable. Which program is better, SBIR or STTR? This depends. The SBI program has more funding. I shared with you, there was a previous chart. It really delineated the various agencies and the spending amount for each agency. And it showed there's over $3 billion. Also keep in mind, STTR has about $1 billion in extramural spending. It can be very helpful for small business to have strong ties with the university. So let's say you have an idea, it needs to be researched, that concept needs to go to R&D research. But let's say you don't have all of the technical expertise. Well, that's when you would rely on the university. The university, they're going to participate in the grant, but they also have subject matter expertise. So when you're a high impact, high growth business, and you don't have all the subject matter experts that are needed for the R&D, well, you may want to consider the STTR because the university could provide additional subject matter expertise. Now, I will also share this. Another reason why you may want to consider the university is, in addition to the subject matter expertise, they may have additional resources. So when you need additional resources, when you need additional subject matter expertise, when you want to ensure that that your proposal will be seriously taken consider of, well, then you may want to pursue the STTR. Keep in mind, the 5 largest SBI programs also have STTR programs. How do you apply for funding? It's Start by checking eligibility. And please keep in mind, where you need to go is www.sbir.gov. Some eligibility requirements include company must be for-profit, must be US owned and operated, under 500 employees. Work must be done in the US. Focus is on performing R&D. And as I mentioned before and emphasized, not purchasing equipment, commercializing a technology that has already been developed, or one that has very low risk and only needs capital. So if you fall into one of these categories of not purchasing equipment, commercializing a technology that has already been developed, or one that has very low risk and only needs capital, well, then SBIR, STTR may not be right for you. Small business is always the applicant and the awardee. Why should you try? Well, there's significant funding. As I mentioned regarding that chart with the various phases, it's from 150,000 to 1,150,000. And so there's a lot of funding that is available. Award sizes may vary. Over 3 million per project potential over a 3 or 4 year period. This offsets your expenses, and you learn a new skill set that you can apply repeatedly. Is there a form that I need to complete? No, you provide a proposal package in response to a solicitation. There are 11 participating agencies in the SBIR program. Their solicitations are available for about 10 weeks at a time. You need to follow the guidelines explicitly. The SBIR programs do not accept unsolicited proposals. You apply in response to a solicitation. So where you want to go is SBIR.gov. When you go to SBIR.gov, there you can go to forecasting. You can go to archive. You can go to current. You can search by agency. You can search by SBIR. You can search by STTR. You can search by year. You can look at geographical area. And so you can download the archive solicitations. You can see the current solicitations. You can also seek local assistance. You can learn about upcoming events and current news related to SBIR, STTR. So there's a wealth of information on the SBIR.gov website. There are courses, there are online tutorials. Just, if you can't tell, I get excited about this. Now, what are the approximate schedules? Well, you can see from this chart here, depending on the agency, when you need to start looking for those forecasts and those current solicitations. This is just a very important chart with significant information on when you should be looking for solicitations depending on the agency. Now, what you'll want to do is you'll want to search based on your industry. So you can do a keyword search. You can search by solicitation, and you want to identify that agency that you want to work with as far as a potential proposal. And then utilizing the schedule here, you can identify when the upcoming solicitations are going to take place. I will also share this, the SBIR website. Not only can you see archived and current solicitations, but you can also see who your competitors are. Now, you should be seeing a slide that says 150 hours, and you're probably thinking, what's 150 hours? That 150 hours, it's on average. On average, the number of hours that's going to be required to draft, prepare, develop your proposal for that SBIR STTR grant. So this is not for the faint-hearted. It's going to take an investment. It's going to take an investment of time. And getting back to that schedule slide, not that you, Abigail, that you need to go back to that slide, but that schedule slide, you need to be aware when the proposals are coming. And so you're going to need to have enough time to develop that proposal and work with the timing of the schedule of the solicitations. What skills are involved with preparing an SBIR STTR proposal? You need to have an innovative concept, understanding your agency's customers' needs. And I'll share this, just like you would do market research in the private sector, you need to do market research in the public sector. You need to identify which agency has an SBIR or STTR grant related to the R&D work that I want to do. And then once you've identified the agency, you need to know what their schedule is. Then you need to do your market research and know what the agency's customer needs are. You don't want to be finding out about the agency's customer needs or when you have that meeting with the agency. You need to do that prior to meeting with the agency, prior to the proposal. The application of the scientific method to work a plan, developing a business case, explicitly following agency guidelines. There are multiple registrations, developing a team and/or partnerships. There's financial preparation, and there's time management. Those registrations can include DUNS. DUNS stands for Digital Universal Numbering System. SAM, System Award Management. SBA Registry. That includes your SBA profile and more. And if you're not registered with SAM, System Award Management, you cannot submit a proposal. What are the elements of an application? Well, you need a technical proposal. And I will share this. With some agencies, it is also considered a contract. And with a contract, you have statement of work. And with statement of work, there are requirements and guidelines that you must follow. And I highly recommend, if you're working with a federal agency, either an SBIR or STTR that is contract related as opposed to grant related, you will want to work with your local PTEC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, who can provide guidance regarding, I call it a SOW, S-O-W, statement of work, in response to that proposal for that contract for either SBIR or STTR. So let me be clear. SBIR, STTR can be a grant, but it can also be a contract. And if it's a contract, you'll want to work with your local procurement technical assistance center. Also, in addition to the proposal, you need to have a qualified PI, principal investigator. You need to have resumes of key personnel, facility description, budget with cost justifications. And let me go back to facilities. This is another reason why you may want to consider small business technology transfer. As I mentioned, they have subject matter expertise, but I also mentioned they have additional resources. And if you're needing facilities for your research, that's another reason why you may want to consider utilizing STTR and working with a tier 1 university. You also need budget with cost justifications. And so you're going to need budgeting, proper pricing, cost allocations, documentation from other involved entities, and other documents unique to each agency. And what I mean by that, in addition to the DUNS number, SAM, SBA profile, other agencies may have their own databases that you need to register in as well. Why do proposals get rejected? It's not all about you. There must be synergy between your goals and those of the agency. And I would submit to you and your goals and that agency. You must follow their instructions explicitly. The project must be generally innovative. And let me go back to those instructions. You must follow those instructions explicitly, whether it's SBIR, whether it's STTR, whether it's a grant, whether it's a contract. There are going to be instructions and guidelines, and you need to follow those to a T. You must also have a good team and appropriate facilities. And as I mentioned, with an STTR, you'd be working with a tier 1 university as well. What are my chances of winning an award? The average award rate for phase 1 is 15% across all agencies. So that means 85% of those who submit proposals are not awarded. Now, keep in mind the award or percent probability of getting awarded. It varies depending upon the agency. Very experienced and novice companies apply. It takes time to learn how to prepare a winning application. We're here to help. And that's why I mentioned before about the SBIR, SBIR.gov. And keep in mind when I say SBIR.gov, that platform, that website, that is where you'll also find information on the small business technology transfer, the STTR. And as I mentioned, there are online courses, there are online tutorials, and you can find local assistance, upcoming training. All of this is available to you on the SBIR.gov website. This includes agency overviews, program basics, data rights, intellectual property protection. Also, as I mentioned a moment ago, you can connect to your network of local support, and that includes the SBA local resources, including the PTAC. It is hosted by the SBA resource partner, the Texas Gulf Coast SBDC Network at the University of Houston. We also have the SBA SBDC Small Business Development Center. We also have 2 women's business centers, and all of these are resources as part that is included in the network of local support. How do I know when solicitations are released? We had that slide on the schedule. for solicitations for FY 2020. You can also, I also recommend that you visit the various agencies that are participating. And I'll share this with you. When you go to that landing page, you're not just going to Department of Homeland Security, you're going to the SBIR at Department of Homeland Security. So it's going to take you to the SBIR/STTR component of that federal agency. And that's pretty exciting. And I'll share this with you. You can also find out about forecasting and solicitations, and some of these agencies, they have additional network and support within that agency. For one, for example, the Air Force, they provide assistance and support for SBIR, and it's located in Austin. And so depending on the agency, depending on Department of Defense, there's additional resources at that agency website. Please stay in touch. Like I shared, there are upcoming training, upcoming events, and you want to follow us at SBIR, #Seed the Future, entrepreneurial resources, organizational support, procure cutting edge technology, share a success story. You can do all of that by visiting the SBIR website and also following them on Twitter. And of course, if you have additional questions for us, we have our contact information, including the SBDC, the Houston SCORE, the Women's Business Center, the SBA. I've got to thank Ms. Abigail Gonzalez. She updated these slides to include our local resources. And Abigail, I'll turn it over to you so we can take some questions.
Thank you so much, Mark, for that really informative presentation. I hope that everyone was able to learn a lot from this presentation. I know I did, and I've heard this presentation before, so it's always helpful to hear it again. And we did get a couple of questions, so while we answer those questions, feel free to add more questions to the chat. And I'm going to leave the current screen up for you so that you can take a look or take a photo of our local resource partners. As a reminder, all of these partners offer free business advising and mentorship. So if you are looking for business plan assistance or assistance with this topic of SBIR and STTR, feel free to engage with them. That is actually our first question from Ms. Tandalyn Weaver. And she asks if these individuals are able to use the resources, for example, the Small Business Development Center, to help them make the technology acceptable for the purposes of SBIR and STTR.
That's right. What it is, you know, and it's great to hear from Ms. Weaver, by the way. And you know, if this was a school of SBA, I would give her an A+. The SBA resource partners are there. You know, you need to have a conversation about the concept. You need to have a conversation about, do you have the subject matter expertise? We talked about that. Do you have the resources? Do you have the subject matter expertise? Do you have the concept? And is the concept, is there, you know, is it reasonable to expect that R&D can be conducted on that concept? And when you conduct that R&D, is there going to be interest from one of the 11 federal agencies? So, you know, Ms. Weaver, that's a great question. And as a business, as a high-tech, high-growth, high-impact firm, you need to get feedback. You need to get feedback on your project. You need to work with the SBA partners. And I'd be remiss, the Houston SCORE, they have over 150 volunteers that are mentors. And let me emphasize that. You have 150 volunteers who are mentors that have subject matter expertise in 63 industries, including the oil and gas. And you have the SBDC who have expertise in SBIR and STTR, in contract proposal, statement of work, grant proposal. I hope I've answered that question, Abigail.
I think you did, and I think that also answers Tandalin's other question, asking if the SBA helps write the proposal. So through those resource partners, that is the
Yes.
assistance that we would refer you to so that they can help you
Yes.
create that proposal. We have another question from Atusa, who says, what is the benefit for a tier 1 university, which is already established, to partner with a small business like us for an STTR grant?
You know, whoever raised that question, that I give them an A+ from the School of SBA. Yeah, that's a great question. Why would a tier 1 university want to collaborate? And that's a great question. You know, one of the things that I mentioned is funding, capital, resources. You know, the SBIR, STTR phase 150,000, phase 2, 1 million. As the slide indicated, you know, a 3 or 4 year project can go into the millions of dollars, $2 million, $3 million. And, you know, Abigail, you know, there was that one chart that showed the spending was over $3 billion. So to the person who asked that, that's a great question. One of the reasons why they may want to collaborate is funding. And I'll share this. It's also an opportunity for that university to collaborate with that agency, with NASA, with DOD, with Department of Homeland Security. So it's the collaboration, it's the network, it's the research, it's the funding. So I hope I answered that question.
Thank you. And the same individual asks if Rice University is a tier 1 institution that they can collaborate with.
You know, I believe so. You know, I know University of Houston is tier 1, and you know, I can't imagine Rice not being tier 1. But you know, the due diligence in me, you know, we would need to confirm that. But I believe that is the case.
Thank you, Mark. I believe so as well, but I would also have to confirm. So that's another great question. We don't currently have any unanswered questions. We do still have some time, so please feel free to put your questions in the chat or the Q&A section so that we can give you your answers. In the meantime, Mark, is there anything else you wanted to add about this program?
No, I appreciate it, Abigail. I just wanted to share, in addition to the SBA resources and the resources that are listed at the sbir.gov, and want to reiterate the online courses, the tutorials. Wanted to emphasize, Abigail, there are individuals who previously worked with the Houston Exponential, that have worked with TMCX, have worked with MD Anderson, who also have expertise in areas such as life sciences that can also provide additional guidance regarding SBIR, STTR proposals.
Thank you so much, Mark. That's a great tip. It doesn't look like we have any other questions, so I have added in the chat our website for the SBA Houston District Office. You can visit our website for our webinar schedule. You can find other webinars, much like this one, about other topics involving the SBA, whether it has to do with federal contracting, capital, or other topics, and also a list of lenders and list of local resource partners. Looks like we got another question, actually. Tusa says, what is the best way to decide which university labs to collaborate with for a specific project? Does the SBA help guide with this?
Yes, and the response would be you would want to work with our SBA resource partners. And, and that's a great question too. And I'll share this with you. The tier 1 universities, they have a lot, they do. They have a lot of research, R&D, that has not been commercialized. So there may be instances where the R&D is there and it's just waiting to be commercialized. And so, yes, you'll want to work with the resources from the SBDC who have expertise in SBIR and STTR proposals.